Okay, so here we're still looking at factoring by grouping. We still have a 4-term polynomial. And I'm going to go ahead and look and see, first of all, do I have a GCF for all 4 terms? In this case, I do not. So I immediately go to my second step, which is split it in half in front of the first sign with the second sign, whether it be plus or minus. I go ahead and look for the GCF for the first 2 terms. In this case, they're both even. I know I can factor out a 2. My smallest exponent is 1. So I know that I could go ahead and pull a 2 and a y out. And going ahead, that means I'm dividing these by 2y. Which means I'm going to go ahead and have a y left over, and a minus, and a 7. And these y's are going to cancel. All right. And now knowing that I'm going to have a y minus 7, I see that I have a little bit of dilemma. If I go ahead and look at my third sign, I see that it's a positive. All right. I also see that my second sign is negative, and I have a positive 2y in the front. Which means whatever I want to do to see if I can get a GCF, I need to make sure that this positive becomes a negative, which means I need to go ahead and factor out a negative. Okay. So whatever GCF I have for these last 2 terms, I need to factor out a negative. And 5 and 35, I have a GCF of 5. But I'm going to go ahead in this case and factor out a negative 5. Right. So a negative over negative gives me a positive. 5's cancel, leaving me with a y. All right. And that's a negative 5, sorry. And a negative divided by positive is a negative. 35 divided by 5 is 7. And I see now that my binomials match. So I'm going to go ahead and factor out my binomial GCF, which is y minus 7. Remainder goes to a second binomial, which is 2y minus 5. And I probably should go ahead and check this through FOIL. So I go ahead and I have 2y squared minus 5y minus 14y plus 35. All right. So there's my plus 35, there's my 2y squared, and if I go ahead and look at the middle 2 terms, I have my 14y and my 5y. I am good to go. So sometimes you have to go ahead and factor out a negative number to go ahead and do factoring by grouping. Let's go ahead and look at another example. I totally encourage you to try this before you go ahead and do it with me. All right. So the first thing we should do is look for a GCF for all 4 terms. I have 2 terms that are divisible by 2, 2 that are divisible by 5. Not really seeing too much going on here, so I'm going to go ahead and work with it as it is. I'm going to go ahead and split it in half and look for a GCF for the first 2 terms. 14 and 35. Looks like I have a 7. And I also have a K. When I go ahead and divide these by 7K, I end up with 2K plus 7 divided by 7 times 5 is 35. The k's cancel. And I'm expecting a plus sign here. Notice here I have two minuses, which means I'm probably going to have to factor out a negative in this case. All right. So if I want to go ahead and look for my GCF, I'm also looking at changing my signs. Okay. So if I wanted to go ahead and get to that point, I want to probably factor out a negative 6. All right. So 12 divided by 6 is positive 2. Oops, sorry. Why I'm doing that. Okay. I'm factoring out a negative 6. That's leaving with positive 2k. Positive divided by negative divided by negative is a positive. 30 divided by 6 is 5. And I see that I have a binomial GCF here. I'm going to go ahead and factor that out. So I have 2k plus 5 as my binomial GCF. That cancels. The leftovers go over in the second binomial, which is 7k minus 6. And if I factor this, I should end up back where I started from. Right, let's look at a couple other ones. So here I have another one. I'm going to go ahead, first of all, look for a GCF for all 4 terms. I do not have one. I'm going to split it in half in front of the second sign. My GCF for the first 2 terms is A. When I factor out A, I'm left with B minus 7. And I notice that here I have a plus sign. So I'm going to go ahead, and I also see that I have a B plus 7 instead of a B minus 7. So I'm going to factor out a negative 1. So when I factor out a negative 1, I end up with a B minus 7, and therefore my binomials match. I factor out my GCF binomial by dividing both sides by B minus 7. And I'm left with B minus 7. Give it a set of parentheses. And the leftovers go a set of parentheses, so I have A minus 1 from me only factoring out a negative 1. And if I go ahead and FOIL this out, I'm left with AB minus B minus 7A plus 7. And as long as I have all the pieces here, I am good to go. It should match this. Right, the last one I'm going to go ahead and do is something I want to look, first of all, for a GCF for all 4 terms. Because I have a lot of variables, I really want to check this out. I don't appear to have any variables for all 4 terms. So I'm going to go ahead and split it in half in front of my second sign. My GCF for the first 2 terms, I see a 5. I see an A. And when I divide these by 5A, the A's cancel here. And I have a 3C. And minus D. And knowing I have a minus here and a plus here, I know I probably want to go ahead and pull out a negative. So in this case, my GCF is, looks like it's B. So I'm going to factor out a minus B from both of these. So I'm going to have a minus B. And a negative gives me a positive, and I have a 3C. And minus, because positive over negative is a negative. B's cancel, and I'm left with D. All right, I have a binomial GCF here, so I have 3C minus D. Leftovers go in a second set of parentheses, so I have 5A minus B, right? So go ahead and check out the problems we have posted, see if you have any questions. Please reach out if you have any concerns, and I will see you in the next video.